Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this Logical Golf webinar with founder Robert Baker. We ask you to please keep your lines muted as this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the internet this afternoon. If you have any questions about any part of this throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask them in the chat feature, and we will try to answer them at the end. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the Senior Director of Training and Curriculum, Rachel Maruno.
Good afternoon or good morning to some of you, depending on where you're located. Thank you so much for joining us today, and of course for being on time for the webinar. Thanks to an anonymous donor, 120 chapters have received Logical Golf equipment back in 2018 and 2019. And we're excited to have Robert Baker, who's the co-founder of Logical Golf, with us today to provide an overview of the Logical Golf system and the app that he created specifically for First Ski. Robert is a native of South Africa and was one of South Africa's top amateur golfers when he accepted a scholarship to play golf at the University of Texas. After college, Robert played on the African tour and became fascinated with creating the perfect golf swing. So he went on to work under and learn from Chuck Cook and David Ledbetter. And in 1997, he went out and established his own entity, Baker Golf. So Robert has worked with notable tour players and public figures such as Ernie Els, Greg Norman, Michael Bloomberg, and President Obama. So some of you may have experienced or learned about Logical Golf, coach training or network meeting, but it's great to have the creator of the system here with us today to talk about it. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Robert Baker.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's so great that you're attending. I'd like to start out, as we're all teachers, or most of us teachers, with a little story. In the late 1930s, Albert Einstein, who was one of the smartest men in the world at the time, went for a golf lesson in Princeton, New Jersey. And the lesson was based more or less around short games, just chipping and pitching. And it wasn't going so well. And in an attempt to help Einstein, the golf professional kept giving him more and more and more advice until finally it ended in total frustration. Einstein said to the teacher, "Give me a handful of golf balls." He did so. Einstein threw them up in the air and said, "Catch." Needless to say, the pro caught none of them. And Einstein turned to him and said, "Listen here, if I throw up one ball, you'll catch it. If I throw up a lot of balls, you don't catch any of them. I want my golf lessons that simple." And so my whole philosophy has always been about teaching somebody something that they really learn, but they can only handle or manage so much. So we all know that a picture paints 1,000 words. So I thought perhaps a moving picture would paint more than that. And hence all of these tools, and you'll start to experience some of them tonight. We have kids clubs, and with a ball, with a ball that has the properties and flight of a realistic golf ball. We've got an adult's version of those kids clubs. We've got a teacher training bag. We've got a children's bag to follow, and we've got resistance equipment. So there's a lot of equipment, and I was going along quite well with the equipment I was developing. And then about 8 years ago, two incredible people came into my life. One is my business partner from San Francisco, Gary Scott, and the second, who he might not like it, I call him a genius, because he's the one that takes all of my ideas and molds, draws these products, molds them, creates them, and has them manufactured. His name's Heiko Wittenfeld, and he's based in Germany. So none of this would have ever happened if I didn't have the great experience of living in the United States for 26 years and coaching Ernie Els and traveling on the tour and learning from some of the greatest players in the world. So I was always able to put together information from the best players and try to assemble it in a way that people could understand, and hence Logical Golf. So I've tried to take the geometry and physics of the golf swing and present it in the most simplistic way. And I would say that it's a very neutral system, and it's not a method. So sometimes when a teacher propagates a certain method, it really goes off in one direction. And so what we've tried to create is a system that anybody could use. For example, Ricky Fowler could pick up one of our tools and express his ideas with that tool. Sean Foley, David Ledbetter, or George Gankus could use the tools and elaborate on what they're teaching. So it's a very neutral and versatile system. So I thought what would be fun is to start out with analyzing one of the greatest swings of all time, Tiger Woods, and using the tools, using Tiger Woods as an example, and using the tools to show how Tiger Woods built his swing. And we will see during this process tonight that the tools are clearly applicable to children as a starting point, and we'll use Tiger Woods as a model. So let me start off here. The first thing would be Tiger Woods' magical grip. So all of our tools have this training grip on them. The kiddies clubs, all the training aids, all the teaching aids, all the resistance equipment. So what we're looking for in the grip is that the thumb of the left hand goes down the right side of the shaft. The V points up to the right shoulder. And the reason for that is when the joints line up, the club face is dead square. So similarly, with the right hand being in neutral position, if you pull on the arm, the club face is square. So with this molded grip, the hands fit together perfectly. It produces a square club face that Tiger Woods always had. He liked to play with a very neutral club face, and it allows for flexibility in the wrists and ease to hinge and unhinge your wrists. So let me move on, and starting from the ground up, we've got all the products for adults and for the kiddies. So they would always be able to follow along. So I'll use the adults version in this instance. And just in simple terms, it's an extension of my hips. So it's easy for children to see that I start out with my left hip higher than my right. If it was a driver, perhaps more so. So I would start out left hip higher than right, wind up, accelerate. Wind up, accelerate. Wind up into the right side, accelerate into the left side. So that's more or less a very neutral way of expressing what Tiger Woods is doing. If I move a little bit further along, I will use this product, Logical Box, to show you the leverage that Tiger created with his arms. So there's once again the kiddies version, a smaller example, and I'll combine it with Logical Whip. So with this, as you can see, it's got the training grip on it again. So I'll simply slip this on. Now we've got an idea of how the lower body initiated the backswing, and all Tiger would do from here is start to fold his right arm and cock his right wrist to create this box. And it's what I call the box of power. So a lower body movement to trigger everything, and then you've got this box of power. So you're fully loaded, you've got the leverage, and clearly the right arm is a very powerful element in the swing. So let me see if I can go here without breaking anything. So you can see it's a tremendous amount of power and control. And that box you could easily slip onto the left arm. So on the follow through to finish, you're making the box on the left side. So moving along now, we're building the basic picture. The first idea now of club face position we could get from Logical Racket. And we've always tried to include colors for the children so that it's more fun. And once again, the kiddies grip on the little club. So, starting from the ground up again, as Tiger makes his initial move with the lower body, you'll see that we create the box with the right arm. So I start to fold the right arm, hinge the wrist, and this is what he liked. He liked the club in a toe-up position, a very neutral position, and you can see here that the club face parallel to the shaft plane as he makes his way up, coming down, and this is where the product is so useful, because you can see the release of the hands. The product goes from gray to white. So that's fun for the kids, in harmony with that explosive and dynamic movement of the lower body to make the colors change from gray to white. And then into the follow through, once again, you achieve a toe-up position and the club face exited on the plane to the finish. And here's a wonderful tool that puts it all together. So it's called Logical Plane. And you see the colorful little one for the kids and the adults version. And this product can be made to left-handed in a second by just switching the hammer around. So the hammer is used to teach the loading and unloading of the wrists, and the plane, well, just by the word itself, plane, is to help guide the student through the plane of the swing. So it clips very simply on the back of the club like that. I'll just put the two connections. And then what's important is you set the club face at right angles to the plane. So now, a very simple illustration. I've just got to be careful of the lights here. So we'll put it all together now with Logical Plane, and I'll whip around into different angles so you can start to appreciate how we've used the tools to mimic one of the world's greatest players, and it would be so easy for the children to follow you, to just follow along. So here we go, a slight movement from the lower body. I start then to break the wrist softly, fold the right arm softly, establishing the box of power. Then we can see in terms of logical racket how I hit the toe-up position. Notice how the wings of the plane are level, and then I continue to fly the plane over my right shoulder. I bring the plane down, and now's where I've used the loaded hammer. You can see the back of my right wrist is loaded, the hammer's prepared. Now, in harmony with that explosive dynamic movement of the lower body, which we saw with logical extension, I release the plane. The light's not so good, I'll turn this way. I release the plane so the wings are level, the club exits the face is parallel to the swing plane, and then a dynamic follow through, and I'm flying the plane up, 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 and over my left shoulder. So if you had some kiddies and you just said to them, look, wings level, lower body moving, aeroplane over my right shoulder, bring it down, release in harmony with my hips and over my left shoulder. So very quickly, a child is getting a grasp of what one of the greatest players did. It's fun. They get a feeling. They can really see and identify what's happening in a nice way, in a really fun way. Then, not to shortchange anybody, there's some extraordinary players, Matthew Wolff, Jim Furyk, Dustin Johnson, who don't do things in such a neutral way. So these tools, you can use them to describe anybody. So look, I've got the kiddies club here and the kiddies plane. I was just using it for fun. So look, if we took a look at Dustin Johnson, because he plays with a much stronger grip and a shut club face at the top, all we do is turn the plane to the right, like that. Now I'll take my setup, and if the wings now had to be level, look at the club face, it's shut. And now watch as I start to fly the plane over my right shoulder. Watch what happens to my left wrist. Now my left wrist is bowed like Dustin Johnson's. And then when I make my approach into the ball, you can see I'm on the inside with a very late release. So the idea is that these tools are so neutral, you can use them to describe any teaching technique, any player swing. And the beauty of it is, in my honest opinion, there's so much arguing in the golf world today amongst teachers, and I think Seth Wall from the PGA of America said a great thing: everybody needs to work together. So our goal is to produce a neutral range of tools for all of you to teach with, and then you can add your own personalities. You can identify them in a different way, but you have continuity, you have quality control, and everybody's staying down the same highway. So now that you've had all these bags of tools arrive, we were presented with a little bit of an issue that we had to find a way that if all these tools arrived, you knew what to do with them, what they were for, how to use them, why to use them. So we established and built an online platform. Now, the online platform, Rachel's going to kindly help me go through it. If you look at the online platform from a couple of angles, it makes it very simple to understand. To experience a particular product would be one category. That means if you open up the bag and you pull out Logical Playing, that category will tell you a little, give you a product description and tell you a little bit about that product. Then to learn about the system, what are all the bags for? Look, there's resistance. There's kids clubs, there's adults clubs, there's a teaching bag, there's a training bag. So the system helps you identify with what we are trying to do, starting learning the visual way and ending up with resistance training to improve your coordination, your speed, and your muscle memory. And we will choose one example of one tool tonight and go through that just briefly so you can see how detailed it really is. And then spot the exercise is simply, if these tools arrived on a Friday and you were all excited about Logical Golf and you wanted to use them on a Monday, spot the exercise will take you through a list of videos. Once you identify with the player some of his characteristics, it will give you some videos that will help you to get that player moving in the right direction. So with Rachel's help now, she will go to the online platform, and I will take you through the example of logical extension. So if we go to experience one specific product, and this platform is so very detailed and so well structured, it would take you a long time to go through it. So what I'm doing tonight is just choosing one example and showing you how you can have some fun with it and see how it progresses from this kiddies version. We click on that, Rachel, thank you. And then we'll click on logical extension. So there's a product description that pops up, and then using the wheel, it will show you various videos and how to use that particular product where it's used from. So now we'll move out of that and we'll go to learn about the system, the blue section. So in learn about the system, there's basics, there's resistance training, there's teacher videos. And one I'm particularly fond of is follow me. We'll click on that one, Rachel. And because this is your daily work, if we click down there, we will see logical extension and a young German kid called Jonathan. This was honestly the first time he'd ever tried it. So let it play through. For those of you, not sure who's got volume or not, I'll talk you through it. So the teacher describes the use of the child, of the logical extension to the child after he's fixed his flaws, his or her flaws. And then the teacher will check that he's doing it correctly or she's doing it correctly. And then the two of them will have fun together, or 20 of them will have fun together, however many you like. So what a great way to keep children engaged, to have fun, but all the time you know they're learning the correct geometry and physics of this incredible game. And who knows, there could be a Tiger Woods or an Annika Sorenstam standing behind you. So we'll let that one play. There you go. See, so you got the timing of it. Rachel, thanks. So let's go to the category spot the exercise. So we go out of that. Thanks a million to, yep. So we want to follow along with logical extension. So let's pick category A. And so you're watching a player hit, and he's hit 20 or 30 balls, and you decide the kid is right-handed. So A or B, so right. So let's say, I'm going to move close to the screen. Let's say the ball goes off to the right. So we choose C. Let's say it has a curve of left to right. So we'll choose A. And then I know where logical extension can be used. So we'll choose, let's say, a thin strike A. So now, by using the wheel, certain videos, exercises, drills, and imagery have been used to fix this problem. Now, it's not possible to identify precisely with every single person exactly what they're doing, but every part of this video is positive. There's not one instance where we talk about what somebody's doing wrong. And I guarantee you, by doing these drills, watching these videos, that player would get much better. Maybe not to the perfect state, but much, much better, and have a much better understanding of what they need to do. So Rachel, thank you. I'm going to stand up and talk about daily work. So I'll once again get logical extension. So being on the PGA Tour for many years and being a consultant to some of the world's great players, obviously I learned a lot. And players from like Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, was such a wonderful experience. So 26 years in America, many years on the tour, and allowed me to understand the dynamics of what's happening at the highest level. And I always wanted to be able to grasp all this knowledge myself and digest it, and then be able to give it to my students or other teachers in a very simple way. So as the teacher, you need to know what's going on. When Sean Foley talks about putting pressure loading up on your left foot, or you know, the long hitters talk about a quick shift to the left. So let me show you what we feel part of your daily job and having a curriculum is that the teacher understands what's happening. So I'll go through very briefly a couple of the dynamics and outstanding features of great lower body motion, and we'll go back to the Tiger Woods example. So put the ball on this side, left hip starts higher than the right, left foot's turned out more than the right. So you will see that in the backswing, as I wind up, the right hip turns slightly up, and my head is pretty much jobless. It doesn't have a job. It's going nowhere. So I've moved into my right axis. Why is that important? Is because when you open a door, the three hinges are one on top of the other. So the correct structure, the correct geometry of a door is the three hinges one on top of the other. So my hip more or less over my knee, more or less over my foot. So you can see as I make the move, look what's happening. I've got the correct geometry. Also, I have a real feeling that I'm winding up. And with this tilted wind up like that, it will also set my shoulders on the correct plane. Now I can move into my left side and put the pressure into the ground and accelerate. So look how the left hip comes up and open. I use the ground. It's a real pop. And then I put pressure on the back of the ball with the right hip coming through. You'll see how nicely my foot rolls through. So if I'm coming towards you, we'll do it again. Wind up, accelerate. So look how I'm using the ground. You can see the left leg. I'm using the ground forces. Look at the consistency that you can achieve when this ball passes close to the ground each time. So you can see it's a dynamic movement, really a lot of power, but also a lot of control. So to finish off with the teacher's understanding, you can see, watch how these two logical golf tools parallel each other through the ball. So you can see the hips are not only responsible for power, but they're also responsible to help govern the path of the club and help with face position. So if we moved along now, the second step would be a teacher identifying the problems that the children have. So very briefly, three common faults we see. If the kiddie now puts I'll use the little one. The kiddie puts the logical extension behind his back. Immediately, you would see that if there was just a shift and no rotation whatsoever, the ball hardly passes in front of the body. A second flaw that we see often is a high right side over the top. Look how high the ball is coming through. Look how my head moves in front. For those of you who can see my foot, look how my foot spins out. And a third fault that we often see is the children are so oriented at making contact with the ball that there's no speed whatsoever in it. So an easy way to fix it then is using logical extension, where the kiddies get corrected by the teacher and they follow along. So for the first example, where there's just simply a lateral motion, let the ball, this ball must now go past the left side of the body, like that. So that problem is easily fixed in a very visual way, so you're communicating a huge message in a simple way. This over-the-top move like that, all the children have to do is to try to visualize the ball coming close to the ground, so they can now feel what's happening. They can see what's happening, feel what's happening, and look at the difference it produces. Watch. My head stays behind the ball. I like the word that it's jobless. It doesn't really have a job. My right foot rolls. My left hip goes high, like Tiger Woods, and my right side comes under. No more going over the top. And then very simply, to have some fun, you can accelerate it for the child who's too slow. So the kids see you doing it, and they can help themselves to fix their mistakes. So the whole process is engineered about you as a teacher getting the facts from the greatest players in the world. And these are facts that nobody can really argue with. There might be slight variations to them, but this is a very neutral system based on the correct geometry and physics of the swing for both long and short game. And then I have to do something. We move then to one of the last parts. So this is called logical resistance. So this is a product that the chapters have. You put it up on the wall, and this takes you to the next level. So that logical extension we can now use for, I'm just going to have to move a few things. Clearly, we're all at home, and it's not perfect, so I had to set, this is the portable logical extension, and because it was too light to make this call, I had to put some blankets outside the window. So anyway, you can get an idea here. This is the portable one. There's the resistance. So with the resistance, the older children can learn more flexibility, better coordination. You can get the impulse from the ground that the great players get. You can improve your acceleration and keep the muscles loosey-goose. So I would very much like to continue to help you with these seminars. I'm so proud of what we've done. I'm thankful to the First THQ for inviting me and supporting me, and I'm very grateful for our partnership. So just take a look at the time, and then we can do some Q&A. So I think that I'm pretty much done. If we go to the Q&A, Rachel or Andrew.
Great, Robert, thank you so much for the demonstration. Folks, if you have any questions, now's the time to chat them. You can do that in the chat feature or through the questions tab. So Robert, we'll just give it a minute to see if anyone has any questions. We haven't had any that have come in your great presentation just yet. But as you all are perhaps thinking through this, the likelihood of you having the equipment is pretty high since almost all of our chapters have it. I know that some of you have gone through and experienced the equipment at perhaps coach trainings, and we've talked about some different ways that you're able to either incorporate these into your lessons. Another thought for using the Logical Golf equipment is if you happen to have rainy day and you need to do some activities indoors, this is obviously a really great option for that. In being able to use a lot of Robert's tools in an indoor setting, as you just saw him do in his home in, where are you, Robert, right now? Austria?
I'm in Austria, yeah.
In Austria, yes. So these lend a hand well to indoor activities. as well as if you're doing some one-on-one instructions with a young person. I think there's really great ways that you all first tee coaches can address and introduce this equipment. So perhaps not exactly calling out a young person's flaws, but one of those, hey, would you be interested in trying some of this new equipment we just got? Check out this logical extension, or however you want to dub it, and doing the follow me sort of approach that Robert has suggestions. So Robert, we are getting a couple questions in right now. We have a question about how you get the app. The app, we included a link to the app in Network News, the last issue of Network News, but it's also available on the intranet. If you can't find it there, you can definitely email me directly and I'll be able to get that to you. The app is free to all chapters out there, so perhaps it was also in the introductory email that Andy sent out from Robert. There's a link to the app there. It looks like a lot of the questions are about the app thus far, Robert. If you are unsure if you have the equipment, definitely check with your program director first. Through different transitions and such, the equipment might not be at perhaps the facility you might be teaching at. So definitely check with your program director first about whether or not you have the equipment where it might be. Robert, we do have a question about setting up the resistance materials without mounting them somewhere permanently. How do you perhaps have yours set up right now? Is it in a door?
Okay, there's two separate versions of the resistance equipment. So the one is a permanent fixture, and that is fixed to the wall for safety. So this is a very high quality engineered piece of equipment, and some of the tour players actually have this at home to train on. The other is a portable system of bands, high quality bands, and different combinations give you different resistances. And then it's just, I'll open the door. It works with a safe locking mechanism. So this wheel locks it to various points on the door to correspond with where you would set up the wheel. So if you had the wheel on a high point, you would put it at the high part of the door. And the wheel on the low point, you'd connect this to the low part of the door. So when you travel, some of the chaps on the mini tours and that travel with this equipment, and they just simply connect it to their hotel doors. So that's how you would do that.
Great, thank you, Robert. Robert, could they use perhaps tennis balls or different type of balls versus just the wiffle balls with the equipment?
No, because let me bounce this ball for you. This is a very, very specially designed golf ball. This ball flies and has the characteristics of a real golf ball. So for those of you who hit it, you will be able to, if kids are in their backyard with this very lofted wedge, they can go over a swimming pool. You can hit this, if you had a piece of AstroTurf in a hall, you could play indoors with this, off AstroTurf. So the whole idea of our equipment is that this goes from a tennis ball. It's the gap between a tennis ball and a golf ball. So the idea that behind designing this is so that the ball would be airborne immediately. Kids would have fun. They wouldn't lose their patience. It's such a big head and such a big ball. Even the kids that aren't that coordinated would enjoy themselves more and wouldn't be running for their iPads. That's why we designed it that way. So a tennis ball, imagine hitting a wet tennis ball on a cold day. It doesn't fly. This ball will get tremendous height. It backspin. We have a video that shows it in use for putting. I mean, it rolls beautifully. We've specially designed the weight. We've specially designed the structure, the material that it's used. It's a very, very specialized ball. And the first tee are the first to receive this ball. And it's in two different colors.
Great.
So if it's a chance to take the adults clubs or the kids clubs and try this ball, you've got to try the ball. That's why I started this presentation with the ball. and luckily I had two because I bounced one and lost it. So the ball is crucial. The ball, the kids clubs are nothing without that ball. Neither is the adults version. There's so much fun you can have because it's realistic golf at a short distance. And for anybody you can see, that's a really high loft, so it's fun. I mean, some kids go in the backyard, whack it up onto the roof, and it rolls back down. So we've got lots of videos of people. If you go to our Instagram account, you'll see that kids are hitting the balls and having a great time with it. So it's a fun thing as well.
Great. Robert, what would you consider to be the ideal group size for your system?
The ideal?
Yes, group size. Or do you see it working best individually?
No, I think it really depends on the individuals. You know, if you've got a group of friends that all want to do it again, if the classmates all know each other, I think it would be fun to do it together. That's why I said you can have 1 or 2 kids following you or 20. So I think that if it's beginner golfers, I would do no more than 4 because you have to pay attention. So if you correct the kiddie number 1's grip and then you go to kiddie number 4, you probably need to go back to kiddie number 1 and check his grip again. But if it's children where the ball is flying and they're doing well, and today's lesson is just on speed, then you can have 20 and you just work with a logical extension and you just go down the line and they're just working on speed and jumping and hitting and having fun and taking breaks, and 20 kids to follow you. But I would say, you know, that's probably a maximum. And then obviously if you have a very, very talented child who's extraordinary and he would like some more time, you do it one-on-one. And if you have a child that's shy and doesn't want to do it in front of everybody else, but he's really interested, then you do it one-on-one. So I think it just depends on the individual.
Gotcha. Robert, we did have a request to walk through the app one more time, and I'll show you specifically which part. I'll share my screen.
I hope I can walk after kneeling down like this on this hard floor. Okay.
So
to come up, yeah, and then we've got Rachel. I can't see what the time is. How much time have we got left?
We're good. We have a couple more minutes. So
okay, you just tell me about the time. Okay, I see.
I will. Yes. So we wanted to see a walkthrough of spot the perfect exercise. Walking through these choices again, Robert.
Okay. So this is how it works. You don't have to be an expert golf teacher to use this. If you're a school teacher or a physical fitness teacher or a golf teacher that just wants more help, you have a student, one of the kids in front of you, and they hit 20 to 30 balls. And then after hitting 20 to 30 balls, what you're looking for is the average of where that ball landed or ended up. So then it's very simple to decide, and we'll do this slowly then. Is the child right-handed or left-handed? And you can make that click. And then just leave it. Now you're watching hit balls. Where do most of the balls end up? And what I said was to the right, C, but you can choose any one, so it doesn't really matter. So choose any one you like. But let's choose, doesn't matter which we choose, yeah. Where does the ball land? Okay, and what kind of ball flight was it? Was it a pull fade or was it a push hook? You know, you have to choose the pattern that ball has. Were they low hooking shots all the time? And then you choose that. You know, and then you choose where the majority. So what I would do is, if a ball is topped, I'm not going to count that. I'm going to count all the balls that were airborne and then say, okay, of the 30 balls he hit, 15 were airborne, 10 of them landed to the right. Then I would have chosen to the right. And then I would say, okay, of those 15 balls that flew, what was the curve on those balls? And of those 15 balls that flew, did he hit fat, thin? Well, let's say 10 were whatever, B, it doesn't really matter. Whatever they were. I can't see what that was. And then the algorithms are, the mathematics are done more or less that will give you a fix for that particular child. And then you scroll down, and then it shows if the club face was open, there's the path to come from inside. Then some of the later drills are for resistance training for the older kids. But if you look at that one, swing path maybe. Let's go up one. And let's just choose a few videos in that section. I've got to come close to my screen. Let's see which tools I've got on the ground. Okay, I've used logical plane for that one. So basically, it's not all about dynamics. It's also about visual instruction. So let's choose another one. Let's see what else came up in those same answers. Let's see, not the resistance. Let's see visual ones. I can't see, it's so tiny. Okay, there's the perfect grip. So that explains the grip. And let's see if there's another one. Oh, that's a useful one. Square using the arms. And that will just show you how to square up the club face using some of the tools. And we are, Rachel, one thing I didn't mention is that, we're always, all of the, let me get one, all of the, can everybody see me now or not? Okay, no, that's fine. So basically, you just have to have fun with that spot the exercise. See, that was about squaring the club. I don't know what we chose, but that was to get a stronger grip and to square the club face using your arm. So you just, basically, you can't go wrong. If you enter whatever the child is doing, those drills might not completely fix the student, but they certainly will get better, and they'll have a better understanding of what they need to do, because it's just the basic geometry and physics. And one thing I didn't mention was that we use arrows for everything. We stick on arrows. So each of the teaching bag has a lot of them. So if you want to indicate a movement, you put the arrow on. If it's for your hips turning or advancing the right elbow, so I always keep them handy and stick them on. So Rachel, I think that if this is fairly successful and everybody starts to take a look at the platform, even those who don't have all the tools, the luxury of having the tools, they can go through the platform because all the videos describe the tools and what they're doing. And then if there's, if there's a good feedback and people have a lot of questions after thought about it, I will gladly hook up with you to answer everybody's questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Robert. Looks like we've covered all of the questions that have been submitted. So I know a lot of them were regarding the app, and we've actually included a link to the app in the chat feature here. It's on the intranet. It's on the email you received prior to the webinar. So a lot of different ways to get it. And again, if you're unsure if you have the equipment at your chapter, definitely reach out and connect with your program director. Or if you are the program director and you're unsure, you can contact us here at HQ. So Robert, we want to thank you again for your time today, for your continued support of First Tee. We truly appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to help you and to be in partnership with the First Tee. And I'm back, even though I'm in Austria and Germany, I'm back in the States once a month for all my clients. So it's nice to stay in touch with you. Thank you so much. And thanks to HQ and to Andrew for helping us and guiding us through the session. Thank you.
Very good. And thank you all for joining today. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.